The food service and hospitality industries are evolving, often in ways you've never heard of, until now. Our host and technovator, Rob Grimes, is the leading voice of global food service and hospitality technology. Powered by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association, IFBTA, the Accelerate podcast is where technology and ideas are shared, served with a side of new innovation. Welcome to the Accelerate podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Accelerate podcast powered by the IFBTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host, and this week we're going to be exploring, something non-political, but something definitely appropriate for the time, and I'll get into that in a minute. But first, let's talk about our last episode on tech expectations. It wasn't about tech peeves, and I know you liked it when we talked about that, but it was really about the tech expectations of the customer, the staff, the management, our shareholders, really about their first impression of where they think technology fits within the hospitality industry. What do they expect when they use technology, when they see technology, and where do we see it from? We took a look at the user experience and how we need to put technology in front of these three very important areas of the customer, the staff, the management, our stakeholders. I shared with you my own personal experience in an autonomous vehicle, which I found to be fascinating, but it really gave you some insight as to the things that you might be looking at. But also we talked about those ways to make the user experience to meet people's tech expectations a lot better by a few key points in thinking about how we put it together and not just doing technology for technology's sake, but really thinking about what the end user expects the technology to be, where they're going to see it, where do they get influenced on it. And so if you're really interested in how do we meet those tech expectations within the hospitality industry, I really urge you to go back and listen to our last episode. I will remind you, though, that at the end I did say never is a long time, and tech expectations do change over the time. And so I think we need to just keep that in mind as we think about tech expectations in how we use, how we provide technology within hospitality. Well, all right, I gave you a little teaser about today. So I guess it would be hard, probably internationally, this isn't just a domestic North American thing, but pretty hard to know that the State of the Union occurred this past week. And that's our president's State of the Union. And I don't want to get into politics. I'm not planning to get into politics. But it did provide the inspiration for this week's Accelerate podcast. So I wanted to share with you my thoughts of where I think the state of the union is within technology, within the hospitality industries, some of those key indicators, some of those things that we might want to be thinking about as we consider the state of the union. Bearing in mind, not here to stir up a debate on it, although actually, you know what? I really do like some of the debates I have or the conversations that I have with people following some of the podcasts and some of them that have become the inspiration of the Accelerate podcast. And so maybe there will be conversation as I'm out on the road for the month of March, as I was last year. Over the next week, we can talk about the State of the Union, although I think that some of those things will be confirmed. The observations, the comments, the thoughts that I've observed and had that I'm going to share with you today as a data point. I say that all the time. I'm just a data point because we all have our own opinions and thoughts and ways of looking at it. And that's why I really like to share mine with you, but I love it when people share those things with me. So let's talk about the state of the union and technology within the hospitality industries. Well, I can tell you that for inspiration, besides what happens in politics and the annual State of the Union that occurs in the United States each year, there have been a lot of predictions since the beginning of the year. Lots of presentations on tech trends, my own podcasts that are out there, lots of articles that are written. There's been a lot of people talking about the tech trends that includes me, as to where they see things going. And I would guess that I've probably been to 8 to 10 conferences and shows since the beginning of the year. This is always a subject. And over the next 3 weeks, another 6. And it'll be interesting to see where those things are. So there are lots of predictions, and that's where some of this information comes from. But also our industry associations have been holding major conferences and putting out information as well. So there's a lot of information to go from. But at the end of the day, besides reading things and talking to people, I talk with the suppliers, I talk with the operators, and the IFBTA, of course, being open to all, has a lot of those conversations, dare I say it, kitchen table conversations. So it maybe be dining table conversations, because we hold a lot of our meetings, our chapter meetings are held in different restaurants, lunches, dinners, sometimes drinks. So what are the topics that people are talking about? Well, we've covered some of those last year. We'll have to do that again this year. But there's a lot of information that's available. And this upcoming week, I certainly look forward to going to MURTEC in Las Vegas. But the week following, the Bar and Restaurant Show, the Pizza Expo, the Multiunit Franchising Conference, Shop Talk. Gosh, what did I just count? I got to count my... Okay, it's enough on one hand. So 5 different events and shows in 2 weeks in Las Vegas. And on top of that, also going overseas to the Hotel, Restaurant, and Catering Show in the UK. So another opinion there. But certainly by the end of March, besides being rather tired and getting a lot of frequent flyer miles, there's going to be some more information and data points that I receive and more conversations to be had that talk about the State of the Union. And some of you can see it. Sometimes you can see it when you attend these types of events, because you can see who the suppliers are and you get a firsthand to see what they're showcasing. The speakers, the presenters, the editorial, these are all things that put together those types of opinions and that type of information that we can see. So let's talk about what I would call the general KPIs, or the ways that I might look at it, or that I might take a look and see what the influencers are and how things are to get that gut feeling. So what are the drivers of progress? Well, I always look at new opportunities for the operator community, because I always start, everything really starts with 2 groups. It starts with the consumers who have to buy and frequent hospitality operations, but it also starts with the operators themselves and what are they offering. And obviously you want the 2 to match up, but consumers sometimes lead in what they want, and operators sometimes lead in what they provide, in creating new markets and new opportunities. So I do look for new opportunities for drivers of progress or change. I look at the consumer spending trends. Are they spending money? Where are they spending money? How are they spending money? And, it's not just the dollar value there. It's also which market segments are they spending in, who's growing. Obviously, the economy has something to do with it. Although, as I point out now all the time, everybody eats, sleeps, and drinks, I suppose. And therefore, you can't have any economy without having hospitality operations, especially on the restaurant side, that are there. And with the new take and eat at home initiatives and delivery, obviously that goes into the home marketplace, where in the past, perhaps consumers might sit there and they might cut back in a bad economy. Well, today, no, they take advantage of what we offer even at home. So we have to take a look at those 3 things. Then on the operator side, you look at the tech budgets. Are people spending? What are they spending money on? I've always said that in a good economy, people will spend money in technology on the operator side, and usually they will spend it to grow their business. And in a bad economy, the operators will go ahead and spend as well, but usually to save money in costs. So it may change the types of systems that they're buying and what they look at and how much risk they're willing to take. But more and more that risk is lowered because of things like putting things out on the cloud and, remote-based computing, and change can happen very quick and the integrations are easier. All topics that we talk about all the time. So those do the platform of change to make it possible. But I take a look at both. But in a good economy is when you start to see a lot of the entrepreneurs come out and the new tech and the new innovation, because people will invest in new ideas. And that's why, by the way, sometimes we talk about ideas that were before their time or bad timing on when an idea comes out. So we take a look at the tech spending, and I'll take a look at the tech spending, and I just know you don't have to give me your dollars. I know when people are writing RFPs or when they're calling and asking about different technologies, or they want ideas, or non-traditional people who supply to the food service industry want to understand hospitality and food service, what the tech is or how they can make investments. So I take a look at the tech budgets. You also want to take a look at tech leadership. Is it evolving? Is it changing? Are they adding to tech leadership? Are companies adding new positions within their labor market of tech leadership? And what I mean by new positions, you have, digital, a digital chief digital officer, chief technology officer, chief information officer, chief data security officer. But you may note that C word there, because we always focused on the C-suite, and the C-suite, used to be just one letter, usually, the CIO. And today it's probably 4 or 5 different C-suite positions that fall within technology, and companies are looking to fill all of them. And so that tells me that there is growth or there isn't growth, because they will consolidate positions when the economy and when the marketplace is not looking good, or they don't feel that there's a room to invest. Do people question their budgets as it relates to people and technology in there? Or is it carte blanche and it's sort of open out there, which we've talked about in the past? Not driven by bad things that happen where people are forced to spend. And then you have to take a look at the supplier marketplace. And that's why I love the IFBTA that has both open seats at the table, completely open at the table for both the suppliers and the operators, because you look at the new products and development and the new enhancements that suppliers are spending money in. Are they investing? But also you have to look at the speed of change of technology on the supplier side, which causes them to do mergers and acquisitions, to buy products to add. You take a look at the supplier side and see if they're expanding their marketplace outside of wherever you traditionally looked at their sweet spot. Which industry segments, who were they selling to, what size of operations. And obviously you're taking a look at whether they're adding to their staff and how are they selling and their channels, because the direct and the indirect channels, and also international expansion. I take a look at that on the supplier side. And you take a look at the overall labor marketplace in general, not just staffing, which we're going to come back to, and also just tech investment by the private equity firms, by those that specialize in our industry, not just full investment in buying companies or consolidation, but also who is making the investment, and is there money for the micro investments and for the new pieces? And we know that there are specific firms that are out there that are doing that within our industry, that will go ahead and provide those investments. But also we're finding investments coming from unusual places and places we didn't expect. Suppliers in other types of areas of the industry that are not in the technology space, food suppliers, equipment suppliers, but also new players coming in, deciding that investing in technology within the hospitality industries is a good place to go. Well, I want to break this down, and I want to take a look at some of the very specific drivers of making this prediction of the state of the industry. But before we do, as always, I'd like to remind you that if you're like me, you're constantly exploring, seeking, and feeding a passion for new technology and innovation, which clearly I do all the time, because there's always innovation and there's always inspiration to talk about innovation. It doesn't matter if it's for work within our industries, your own personal use. I'm constantly looking up things, driving people crazy when I have to look it up right away and say, hey, that makes sense. I wonder if that's out there. So if it makes you say, wow, or it just gets your curiosity up, or it's something that you think should be explored or should be out there, or maybe it's missing, or you just don't know where, take a picture, send an email, send a link, send a text, Whatever it is, pass it on to me directly at coolideas@robertgrimes.com so we can explore, learn, share, and start that conversation together. And many of them do end up on their own podcast of Accelerate in their own episode. And speaking of Accelerate, to subscribe, or if you have any thoughts, comments, or suggestions, please send us a note to accelerate@savor.fm, SAVOR.fm, and our producer will be happy to respond. You can get in touch with me that way, and we just want to hear what you have to say, but we love to have subscribers. Well, I want to take a look then of more than just the general KPIs and how we break it down. What are those observations? And my observations, my opinion, and again, just one data point, don't speak for the industry. And there are a lot of great researchers out there with a lot of great research that's out there. But sometimes you also have to take a look at your gut feeling. How does the consumer, or how does the operator, how does the tech provider feel about how things are going? Because perception becomes reality, but I do want to start with reality. So I do need to do that. And the best place for me to go is to take a look at our industry associations and what they're saying the state of the industry is. And of course, the National Restaurant Association always publishes its annual report and its key findings. And I would suggest that you take a look at that. But we have other industry data resources as well that are out there from publications, other parts of the world, the major consulting firms, the major tech firms that are out there always will put out some sort of analysis and data on the industry. But in general, if you believe that it's by the consumer and the operators who should be telling us how it is, then the sales are up. And the forecast is over $1 trillion. Wow, that's a lot of money for the first time in history in North America and in the United States. And I think we see that all over the world because I do travel a bit and I see that. So the sales are up. They're up for many reasons, but we'll go ahead and we'll cover that in a minute. Clearly, restaurants and the hospitality industry are hiring across the board, the hotels, the restaurants, the retailers. But just in the restaurant industry in North America and the United States, over 200,000 jobs are expected to be added this year, with over 15.7 million employees. Now, I haven't done my math there, but I do know there's some statistics out there that talk about what percentage of the population have worked within the hospitality industry. And it's a large number of people, not just a specific company, but a lot of people in the industry. And when you start to consider all the crossover of not just working directly behind a front desk or a counter in a restaurant, and you have all the tech people and you have all the HR and all the other areas that do our industry and the crossover, it becomes an even bigger number. Competition is strong. Operators see a lot of competition. They feel that there's more and more companies, and competition pops up all the time. And it doesn't take a lot to become a multi-unit operator today or to go international. So that competition and demand for great operators and operations and ideas is strong. Along with all these, costs are up. Both labor and food cost, the major drivers, are up. But also there's the cost of the transactions if we talk about technology out there. And I see that because of the number of places that I would go anywhere in the country or other parts of the world where you are charged a surcharge for using a credit card. Reminds me of the gasoline industry when you used to see those price wars out there and you would get a discount for cash. And now today, of course, it's all one. I expect that to come back around. And certainly, without getting political again, there is legislation on some of those things as well being proposed here in the United States, and I suspect in other parts of the world, to control those costs because people are going cashless, and that's a big thing. At the consumer side, they are very value conscious. It's interesting, the restaurant industry has always been one to do the value priced meals and the packaging. But also a lot of websites popped up many years ago to do value-priced vacations and travel for the airline and hotel industry. So they are cost-conscious. even though they're feeling good. But at the end of the day, they're eating out more because the sales are up, or they're consuming from our industry more because at the end of the day, the consumer loves restaurants. Who doesn't love to eat? You have to eat. You might as well love it. And our industry really is the leader in that across the board, providing, food and beverage in all kinds of places and delivering to all kinds of places. And what I mean there is, from the grocery stores to the unattended markets. We've talked about all that. So if we look at the state of the industry, I would say the general opinion, whether it's from the Franchise Association, National Restaurant Association, the American Hotel Lodging Association, Convenience Store Association, any of the ones that I cover, in general, the findings are very similar to the ones that I just gave you, just for the restaurant food service industry in North America. So things are looking up. And again, I did watch the State of the Union this week, and the economy is up as well, and spending is up. And so those are all very good factors across the board. But we have our silo on here and our laser focus beam, and we're looking at the hospitality industries in general. And so from that standpoint, the state of the industry is good. So we got to break it down then. If we say that the people who are predicting and following the industry, the analysts, the experts, the associations are saying that things are looking up, then what does it mean to us as far as technology is concerned? Well, I'm going to go ahead and start. So we've already covered the consumer side of it because we talked about tech expectations in the last episode. We talked about people wanting to use technology. I think there's no question there that they want to do that, and they want to do self-service, self-operating. They want to be able to do things on their own and make their own decisions, especially around mobile devices. So therefore, on the consumer side, we know that technology is strong inside and outside the industry, which pushes the expectation on us. So the other side of that are the operators. So the operators have new opportunities. They have new types of locations, smaller locations. They have new revenue centers like delivery and pickup, which we've talked about before. And the drive-through actually has come back. So we see the operators seeing new opportunities as there's new opportunities to push their goods out, vending also in there. That means that they are spending on technology to be able to have consistent service and meet the tech expectations of the consumer and the employees, and they have a wider place to sell. So it's not just increasing the check average as we look at it today, but it's increasing customer number of times that they frequency rates and the check averages by new opportunities and new places, because as we've talked about before, consumers want things where, when, how they want it. And they're unforgiving on that. They really want that. So that's new opportunities for the operators. New opportunities, new spending. It means they have to invest in technology, new technologies, not just the ones that they currently use and expand them, but ones to operate in those new environments and be able to connect with the consumers. When I look at tech spending and projects for the operators, I do look at the RFPs that are out there, that they're putting out RFPs, they're selecting new systems, but I do find it interesting that a lot of the operators are spending money on custom programming and writing their own programs, especially some of the larger ones. We've talked about the pros and cons of that. We've also talked about the pros and cons of all-in-one versus best of breed. But those are all big selection processes that go out there. And so we see tech spending. When I see tech spending on custom and IT staffing and leadership on the operating side and their reporting structure, meaning those 5 different titles within the C-suite, I see that. But the interesting one I see on the operating side is the operators, including independents and small to medium businesses, not just the big ones, who are investing in tech companies. They either do personal investing in the tech companies, or they are buying the tech companies, especially when it comes to delivery, online ordering, sometimes a platform in point of sale. So I see those as indicators on the operator side about their prognosis on technology and how it fits. And that's beyond whether their budgets are there. So they have the budget, the internal budgets to operate, the staffing, the leadership, the budgets. But because of the new opportunities they have, globalization, the locations, the revenue centers, they actually have to buy more technology for that may not be the traditional pieces because they're non-traditional locations. And then at the same time, they are spending money to buy technology across the board, but also develop custom programs or put in positions that can do the analysis and the analytics with the data in the custom side. So what about the suppliers? Well, in the suppliers, there's a number of ways to look at it. Are the suppliers offering new and expanded products and services? And the answer is yes. They're doing it for a number of different ways because they see they have to put it together, but also they're doing it to compete with new competitors in the marketplace, not just the ones that just, all of a sudden pop up and have some new technology that you have to have, but also because of the number of the fintech operators that are coming in that are buying up the POS companies because they're doing, software as a service, hardware as a service, pay as you go, doing the credit card transactions embedded. That's a new type of company that maybe 5 to 10 years ago did not exist. And I could point to 2 or 3 of them that in the last few years have just grown tremendously, gone public. We all know who they are. So we can see that on the suppliers, that there's a bunch of new suppliers coming in, but the traditional ones are adding to the portfolio. And they're either doing that by getting into other industry segments within our industry, getting away from the sweet spot, moving upscale where they may have been a independent or an SMB or an indirect channel and dealers and distributors, and now they're going to enterprise or mid-market. They're going international. And then they say, hey, what about retail? What about hotels? So they're looking at cross-industry, and I see this going on with a lot of suppliers today. It used to be if you want to look at cross-industry suppliers between hospitality, food service, and retail, you might have 5 to 10 in the POS market. And today there's so many more that are doing that. And also because of siloed products and specialty products in the best of breed, you will find them focusing as well, cutting across multiple markets. Even if the base core systems, may be different on the market. So how do I see that, by the way? I could just tell you I see it because I go to the regional show events where I see new suppliers entering the market. I went to the International Food Expo of New York last week, and I'm sure I'm going to see it this week at MURTEC when I go, and then those other 4 shows the following week. And then I had NRF and CES earlier this year, and I see new vendors I never heard of popping up. And I stop at all their booths, and I want to find out what it is they're doing, how they got into the market, who's behind them, who have they sold to, because that's showing me that new suppliers are entering the market, especially in the POS and digital area. And who would have thought that? Because POS, I would have thought, would have been full, but there's certainly an opportunity out there. And we've talked about the selling models have changed because of being able to, the non-traditional selling models of being able to pay as you go. But again, even on the supplier, are they adding staff and what types of staff? But I do see the new entrepreneurs that are coming in are both inside and outside the marketplace. And then, of course, the integrations. Are they offering a lot of integrations? The cost have come down. Are they charging for them? How quick to market? Do they just offer open APIs? So these are all indicators on the supplier. So then that takes us to the labor outlook. So if I take a look at the labor side, there's a number of places I look at. Okay, so we can start with the obvious one, which is are people hiring and what positions? Okay, already covered them on the operator side, and I've covered them on the supplier side. But let's just look at the general population. Is our industry an industry of choice? Are there new people entering the market? Do they want to be in the market? And by the way, I'm not just talking about in operations now. We're talking about technology. Do they want to be in the market in technology? And the answer is absolutely yes. Because when I take a look at the labor side of this, I see a number of factors. A number of entrepreneurs that start in college, in hospitality programs, and we'll talk about that in a minute, that are coming up with new innovation. And actually in those hospitality programs, the very fact that they have innovation and entrepreneurship as subjects that you would take, some required, just fascinates me. And a lot of that innovation is obviously technology. So that is an indicator to me that people are making a choice to enter the market. Now, that choice may not be the direct channel to the front desk or in the restaurant or in the kitchen. It may be through other pieces, but people just love our industry to work in it. It's very exciting. They know the names. So it is an industry of choice. So that takes me to the hospitality schools, both the universities, the vocational schools, the programs like Pro Start, the ones that get high school students. And I can look at this around the world, and I see where enrollment is. Now, enrollment is a challenging thing at some of the schools that you need to go to the school, but they all have online programs and global campuses. And so a lot of people are applying to be within our industry and work within. The actual statistics on enrollment, I'm not exactly sure as it relates to specific university programs, but what I do see is not only are new courses being taught, so I think it's hard to say who's really enrolled in our program because they may be in a different college or a different program within that university, but they may be taking courses in hospitality and end up in it. So even at my own university at Penn State, I've always taken a look at how many people are graduated over time from my program in food service and hospitality management. But then if I look at the overall university, I sit there and I say, but how many people graduate other programs that work within our industry? So it's a little misleading at times to strictly just look at a program and say how many people are enrolled in the program, because you have people in the business schools, or they may have a entrepreneurship school, or wherever it is, or the health sciences, or sometimes these programs are mixed up because recreation and parks or golf management may be a different area. So and tourism may be a different area. So you have to take a look at this and look at it in whole. However, I also look at new programs entering the marketplace. I mean, just this past week, I saw a new program announced at a university, a college, the Black colleges and universities. I see them at the vocational schools. And by the way, I see technology going into the programs there. So and certification programs, because what colleges and universities and programs have realized is that young people love badges and they like certification programs. And since you can't teach everything, some of the education is provided outside. And then lastly, if I want to know how many people are in the market or interested in the market, you can look at the professional certification programs and the executive MBA programs and the number of those that are out there. Plus, you can couple on top of it the number of people that are getting their PhDs that want to teach and do research. And those numbers are strong. And I talk to them all the time. So I think we are an industry of choice. So as the third piece, if I look at the labor, both inside and outside, and not necessarily in the operation itself, I think that we are strong. So what's the overall outlook then? How would I wrap up, my outlook, on the future, and where we are? I would say companies are buying tech, suppliers are providing tech, they're all investing in tech, new tech, custom tech. The labor market wants to work with us directly and indirectly. We see new tech and innovation coming to the marketplace, and we see new opportunities coming out there to expand our operations and increase our revenues and sell in places. And at the end of the day, in those drivers of change between the suppliers and the operators, we can sit there and say that the customer and the consumer is increasing what they spend in our industry, increasing their demand on our industry in where they consume food and beverage and where they partake in hospitality. It is not going away. And with that, they are spending. And with that, they expect the tech to be there. So I would say that the overall outlook and the future of the state of our industry in technology is good. And with that, this podcast is brought to you by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association. The IFBTA is the industry's voice of technology within the food and beverage industries, providing thought leadership as a single, impartial, and go-to resource. The IFBTA offers in-person and online communities to connect with your peers, the exchange and all-encompassing global technology directory, and an industry-wide professional education and certification program. The bottom line, the IFPTA is your place to gather, learn, and share. So thank you for joining me on this episode of the Accelerate podcast powered by the IFPTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host, and I look forward to our next accelerated conversation together.